Yes, it's my bonnet. Let's put it on here so we can have a little bit higher so y'all ain't gotta be sitting. Oh, look at what she got on. Crybaby asses. Look what she got on. Look at what her showing. Hey, it's just boobs. It's just boobs. Didn't your mom have them? Y'all know what to do. Y'all know what kind of information I come through with. Y'all know type of information I'm spitting y'all with. Cause I keep hearing that song. What's that? Sleepy Brown. We can hit the bar, sip margaritas. Mm-hmm. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Doesn't feel nice. Is everybody high? I forgot who sings that song, but I know it was like Sleepy Brown or some shit like that. Or someone's last name could be Brown or something like that. Like somebody wants to invite somebody out to go do something. Metatron. Thank you, Metatron, for coming in today to protect your empress. You know what I'm saying? Also, information that I needed to relay was, as y'all seen on the recent community posts, right? So I'm telling you, it's a lot of people this week is gonna be telling it because I'm getting some people that could have been like caught off guard. Was like, how did they know this law? How did they know this regulation? Also, radio to the police stations and stuff like that. And I'm getting somebody saying like, how do they know our communication system? How did somebody know that we was gonna go ahead and report, this, because it was going to be a group of officers that was going to approach somebody and do something, right? However, when they was going to go ahead and do this, right? Like I felt like someone was going to go into an area where someone was at, but they was going to plan to use code 10-7. And 10-7 is basically, letting the communication systems know like, hey, I'm out of service. I'm not going to be able to respond to calls at that moment. But whoever was going to do the 10-7 call and saying that they were out of service, which they were really going to be in service, they in the area, but they was going to utilize that to go ahead and go get the person and try to like, I want to say it's more putting more towards intimidation and questioning, like, oh, well, why are you doing it? It's like someone is looking for a reason to want to say something so hateful, because it's like, on top of that, me going ahead and I was like, someone's part of the cavalry. Someone's part of the cavalry. Okay. So it was like, shooter, well, look at the cavalry, pay attention to the details, the main details. Who protects the governor whenever he's involved in this? And the governor can go ahead and tell those people to do certain things. Like if he, it can't be done illegally. That's the thing. But it was like somebody is part of, I was like saying 563rd. And the thing of it was, he was like, well, they can't come towards me if she's saying 563rd Cavalry. But his cavalry for the state of Florida, for DeSantis, is 153rd. So when I was sitting here getting the details, I was like, Sharita, right now, all the information that you done put on this community post, I know somebody's looking at this motherfucker like, how she know that? How did she know that how did, and it's like, it's getting to a point where now everybody, okay, make your move. Make your move. Make your move. I need you to go ahead and make your move. Just make sure you make your move, your best move. Because I don't mind if I have to go to the point of being pro se on my own. All I need to know is what documents I need, how to file it, where to file it, and I'm going to make sure I look up appropriately before I approach the window of that clerk, because the clerk is going to be involved in the nonsense and try to pull a fast one and say, oh no, you actually got to pay this fee and this fee. And I know some of the fees ain't none of that, because considering if you don't have a bar license, sometimes these county clerks, if y'all didn't know, and say you trying to run your own court case, they will pull a fast one on your ass, and then and they figure out, like, say for instance, me posting all the information that I have posted. If you go back and look from earlier this morning about the laws, statutes, and penalty codes, right? And when you get ready to go file these paperworks, let me tell you, most of the time it'll cost you no more than like sometimes $2, $20 to file like your paperwork. So when you paying the lawyer or the attorney, they'll be like, yeah, this is going to be the cost to cover, this attorney fee. And and it's like you get in charge for the hour of them having to do the research for the penalties. And really and honestly, it's, Someone is like, she's studious. Someone is pissed right now because it's like, how the fuck y'all get me to go along with this shit and you convince me that this person didn't know this, and this? Like, I could break down any system. It's just, it requires me to be bored enough. But considering at this point, you're my focal point. Right now, I'm having to fight not only the medical system, but now I'm having to fight the judicial system. You're not doing your job. So if you're not going to do your job, someone got to fucking do it. So I want to make sure that when it's me having to do this, and considering you've already paid every fucking attorney in the state of fucking Florida to turn their head, apparently you're going to have no choice but to sit there and be like, okay, what book do I need to know? What paralegal legal terms do I need to know? What forms do I need to know? What's the terms and the jargon is used on this? You know what I'm saying? Like, I probably won't be like the greatest fucking talker, but shit, apparently the judge gonna know, like, okay, well, if they serving themselves, and depending on if I can sense that that judge is gonna try to pull some fucking fast shit, like, oh well, you can't present this, you can't, judge, you are super aware, the other attorney or prosecutor, because at that point when you're representing yourself and you come in to do a certain law and things like that, they will go ahead and pull like a quick one, and they get a persecutor. So when you go ahead and represent yourself in court of law, you will, at that point, there's no other lawyer in this situation. So it's you representing yourself, and then you got the prosecutor, and then you got the judge. But however, with them being aware that you representing yourself, most lawyers and judges will look at this situation like they usually take advantage of it. And God forbid that you do not have a license and you're not barred, they're going to take a full advantage of being like, okay, well, they didn't know this jargon, and they didn't know how to say this sentence appropriately, which already put whoever, like, well, some judges, if they're having integrity and doing their job, they're gonna go with it. As long as you can present the paperwork, as long as you can stay on the topic and talk about what it is, and you can present your facts to back up what it is that you're talking about. Because at that point, when you're doing pro se, the judge is fully aware you're not barred, you're not educated in how, it's supposed to be ran. Just as long as you're not being erratic, you're not cursing and certain things, like, I mean, certain curse words you can use, like damn, I want to say that's like as far as you can go. Damn or hell. That's about as far as you can go. But outside of like being belligerent, like the F bombs, saying sugar, honey, iced tea and things like that, you have to be able to present yourself in a particular way. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to conduct yourself. Also, mental state, sometimes they play into that, but not always. But however, consider if the judge is on there and say that they get like real fucking picky, like, oh well, they didn't say this word or this jargon to present, the discovery of their evidence, and that prosecutor is aware, like, oh, they represent themselves. You not know at that same time, if you feel at any given moment when you're representing yourself in the court of law and you feel like that judge is being super biased, but you got all your information, you got all your facts, you got your your argument to go ahead and show and prove what it is that you're saying, you can go ahead and be like, hey, judge, can we, you can take the break from whatever it is and how you running that case, and you pick up on that judge. It's like, hey, judge, I would like to approach the bench. If that judge is denying you, being very belligerent, trying to avoid talking to you, at that point, even if y'all have a court date that next day, you represent yourself, go back home, fill out the paperwork, and take it to the Supreme Court, which is a person above them, and saying, hey, this judge is being unbiased to, well, they're not being unbiased, they're being biased to you for that case. And they'll remove them off the bench and off of your case. So either way it goes, it'll still work in your benefit. But most of the time, when they try to do this, they look at this situation to try to take advantage of it. So you have to be mindful. And so when representing yourself, most of the time, they don't expect for you to know what it is that you know. They don't expect for you to be well prepared. They don't expect for you to have the etiquette. They don't expect for you to have the jargon and things like that. But however, if you can come in and represent yourself based off of, you have your, for you, if it's like you doing medical, right? It will require you to have your full medical record. Even if you was able to screenshot it, that's part of your goddamn medical record, right? So say if that judge be like, oh, this evidence is not admissible, you can't use it in court, it's not, Yes, you can. Because it basically, especially if it's your own information, it's yours. It got your name on there, it got your social, or it got all your information on there. It's yours. But however, you'll get a judge that want to be picky like that. At that point, you have a right, because it's your constitutional right, for one. It's your humanic and your part of the statute right to go ahead and present to them like this is the information. Well, you need to make sure, okay, well, can we take a recess, or can we come back following 2-3 days, or however long that it's going to take for you to get a hard copy of your record to bring it back, because you still gonna have to go get that. Then you're gonna have to go print it out. Then you're gonna have to go pay the fee to go ahead and file it with the court, so they can go ahead and get a copy to the persecutor and to the judge. So now you having to go back and pay for three copies to be made, to be given to the other lawyer and given to the judge, and then you're going to have your copy, which you should always make sure that any kind of document, and when you go into court, make sure you keep at least 3 copies of everything on you or with you, because just in case that at any given time that they choose to say, oh well, we don't have, I got an extra copy right here. And the reason being why you keep those copies and make sure you still have a hard copy on a hard drive is for you to be able to back yourself up to say, hey, I got proof. And sometimes if you're doing pro se in a situation, you do have a legal right that even when you get ready to file it and say, like, if I was like a regular attorney and I have my own firm, I'm going to have all my copies. I'm going to go ahead and go file it. I will make sure that you can create your own document for a paper trail and for a legal document to say, hey, I'm going to take it to the Ninth Circuit Court. I'm going to go file it. I'm going to have it done. Whoever the clerk is that took the paperwork, signing off on the paperwork and processing it, you'll take your piece of paper or form that you created. Hey, I need for you to sign right here. I'm going to need your name. I'm going to need you to put the time. I'm going to need you to put the date, and I need your signature. That right there calls it to be a legal binding thing that they did accept it. Also, it's basically a form of receipt for them to know that, hey, I gave it to this person to file it. And you can go ahead and say, as the same time as they doing this, I need you to go ahead and present your ID if possible. You can take a picture of that and be like, okay, so don't nobody pull, well, this is not what happened. And I didn't take, because people can get to that situation where they'd be like, I didn't take that and it wasn't me. No, you go ahead and make them sign their name, the date, the time, put their signature. You take a snap of their ID, driver's license, or that court badge of them working at whatever courthouse you're going into. So whenever it's time for you to go ahead and go into the courtroom, and then the judge or the prosecutor be like, I didn't get this, or did, well, according to this is your courthouse, correct? Is it, whether you're going to civil court, criminal court, any kind of court, that's your employee, correct? So at that time, if somebody try to pull like, I didn't do this, I didn't receive this, okay, now you have a paper trail to go ahead and we're going to follow the tracks of where did those documents go? Why wasn't it processed? You see what I'm saying? So you will know exactly what to do. Like most of the time, like when people try to pull a fast one, that's what the fuck you do. So no one could ever try to pull an exception to the rule of trying to say, I didn't receive this, or I didn't see this documentation from you, and I didn't talk to you, and oh, you didn't? Okay. So even if you're just talking to someone on the phone, what's your name? The name you spoke to, the time you spoke to, the location or the place, whether it's a bank, school, teachers, daycare, I don't care. Long as you get a name, information. Hey, even if you call in a daycare, I need your daycare license number. And most of the time when they getting these licenses to work in a daycare, they got a license number. I don't care if you're talking to somebody from a hair salon. Can I have your hair salon number? A beautician got a hair salon number. A barber got a barber license. Anytime you go to a restaurant has a license number. So anytime that you ordering food, you doing certain things with law, ask them for, can I have your state license number? And that'll allow you to go, like, say you get sick from a restaurant. Can I have your state license number? Who's the owner? And then you can go ahead and clock who was your waitress, who was your server at a bartender place, what time you was there, like, for me, like, this is literally gave me PTSD to a point. Like, if I'm going to the restaurant, what's your name? How long you been working here? Shit, document that shit, because you don't ever know. You get food poisoning and you go to a hospital, they be like, hey, you got food poisoning. Okay, well, for most people, when they're not in the right state of mind, you're not gonna remember. All I remember is I went to this restaurant. You don't remember who was the server. You don't remember who. Now you will know, like, if I'm gonna go out to eat, and at any given time, whether you like the reviews or not, I went to this place. Most of the time, they should have it near the front door, by the bar, or near, going in and out of the kitchen. Go snap a picture of all three of those things whenever you're going in, which now I know to take my own advice that if I decide to go out for a day and go enjoy myself, be sure to take a picture of the license of the company, of the building. Oh, we don't do this here and we don't want to serve you. What's the refusal of your service? You can take note of that. Okay, are you okay if I record this conversation just in case I'm suffering with a memory loss? I just don't want to make sure that we have a miscommunication. I guarantee you'll get a lot of people that want to act right, do right, serve your food, not do any kind of messy. This is even going to give people regulation to understand when you're going to eat at food places. I don't give a fuck if you're working at McDonald's. Do your fucking job. Don't be spitting in people's food. Don't be putting all your semen and all this other dumb stuff in people's food. A lot of people will learn to do better because guess what? If you suspect that they're doing something, hey, food health code violation, yes, can you go ahead and go check out this restaurant? And considering if you need to, hey, I can hire a private investigator to go ahead and go sit in as a decoy. And if you suspect that it's racism or anything, that right there alone, you take the information that private investigator gave you, or whoever you sending in as your decoy, and they pull that same shit, you already reported them to the food and health code violation, for one. Two, you got your solid information that they did it again to other people as well. So now you already build a bigger lawsuit. Then on top of that, hey, you can give them a fair warning or a courtesy call, and you call them and say, hey, I suspect, I was trying to let you know that at this restaurant, I was running into this issue of this person working on that schedule. That boss can either choose, or that owner of that building can choose to either go back over his schedule of who worked there that day, what was going on. He can either choose to put cameras in there to get the people out of there or fire them. And if that person chooses not to, what I suggest to do, especially if you have to run your own case doing it pro se, you go back again. If you see those same people, regardless if they saying, oh, I don't want to be recorded, you're not recording, you're taking pictures for your proof and evidence. These people are still here at that point. Now you got a lawsuit and you can shut down that restaurant. And then whatever it is that they're serving, God forbid, is a franchise or anything of that such. Even you can do the same shit at a hospital. And you know how most of the time doctors be like, oh, we don't want you to record. Okay, record is one thing. Taking a picture is a different one. And even if it is, that if it's coming to a point which most people don't understand, and then there's always a loophole to everything. Most majority hospitals have their own private investigators. So privately owned hospitals. So like, let's say very major hospitals. So in Orlando, you have Arnold Palmer and you got New Morris Children's Hospital. They have private investigators. So if you go into the main thing and you go to the about, and when you go read about the information and things like that, you can go click on the careers. In the careers, you go look through the list of things, and most of the time it'll tell you if they're looking for private investigators, if they're looking for insurance claim people. It will tell you what they're looking for. And 10 times out of 10, most of the time, if you can look on there and they're looking for titles, and you type in clinical research, if you type in these type of things, then you know you are at a hospital that is secretly, depending on what you are, see what are the statistics of that hospital, because most of the time people will do reviews. Those reviews that you can see stick out where it's given like 3 and under, pay attention to those details. Most of the time, pay attention to how many times a doctor is mentioned, a nurse is mentioned, services mentioned. You can do the same thing with police stations, sheriff departments, even your commissioner, your governor. At any given moment that it's mentioned more than 3 times that a person has not done their job effectively, efficiently, there was a disservice, there was they wasn't communicating, they wasn't answering calls, abuse of power. If it's mentioned more than 3 times from certain people, and especially if this is people that have money or middle class, at that point you can take that information, hire your own private investigator. Whether you don't ever announce it that you're going to get them looked into. the most effective way, so you can make sure that they can act how they usually acting. You just don't say anything. You say okay, and you make it seem like you're being submissive. You're taking the order, and you hire your own private investigator. And in the accordance of hiring your own private investigator, you can go ahead and have them say, "Hey," but look for private investigators that are very well known for either getting people that can impersonate. Well, they're not impersonating. They could be retired doctors. They could be retired lawyers or things of that much. And then, or like have military experience or intelligence. And those be the people that you send in where they can go ahead and like, they'll come up with false diagnosis and come into those hospitals and be like, oh, I'm dealing with heart issues. Like say if you had an issue with, the heart doctors, they'll send people with that. Say you had issues with OBGYNs, they will send secret people in for OBGYN. Like any kind of department you could think of, they will send people. If you have problems with people with psychological psych wards, psychiatrists, those private investigators that you're hiring was sending old retired people that they have that know the book, they know the DSM, they know the laws and stuff like that, and they will go into these hospitals. Sometimes they're of the same race. So say if you felt like you was dealing with racism, they will send in the private investigators of those nationalities and have them go in and have them have on like their secret cams, because that's more evidence for you to go ahead and prove, where they can be like, yeah, you absolutely right, that one had this type of problem and this one had this one. And even though they know for a fact that they don't have these diagnoses, they can basically take down where they'd be like, yeah, on your cardio report, they know they're healthy, but according to them, they can go ahead and pick up on scams. They can pick up on billing fraud. They can pick up on giving you diagnosis, just want to give you pills. They can pick up on if they're trying to do clinical research, blind studies on you, everything. So that's why when they choose to try to do certain things of this such, that's why it don't ever really work out. They can even go as far of catching doctors, like say for instance, they'll go as far as certain, private investigators, which they come with money now. Some of them get a little bit expensive. Like some of them you'll be paying, like for the ones I'm speaking of, you're gonna pay at minimum to like, I'm gonna say about 12 to 13,000 at minimum. And it's just depending on what you're looking for, because you got to think they're getting retired doctors, psychiatrists, you name it, right? But say you want to catch them on medical malpractice, right? They will hit, send in people, whether they work for the government or not, because these people will have the clearance to go ahead and work. Like for me, for the VA, right? They will have particular people go in there and be like, yeah, okay, so tell us how the system, they'll get them to go along with them and stuff like that. But unbeknownst to them, shit, little stud earrings. It wouldn't be nothing major, but have earrings as such. And they just sitting there and it's like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. And most of the time people don't be really paying attention. So they'll catch them signing off on documents. They'll find them like, yeah, if it's like racism, right? Depending on the nationality, most of the time it be very, 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 very heavy. And white doctors, Hispanic doctors, and then the Uncle Ruckus is black doctors that be trying to get along to go along, but not knowing that they plotting to get them out the system. But they'll go in and go see them falsely putting records like, yeah, when it comes to some of these people of color, you got to put this in there. And because we're looking to meet a quota of diagnosing them with this, and Big Pharma has sent us in this batch of medicine to test them out on them. Most of them are placebos. The other ones are psilocybin, unbeknownst to them. You see what I'm saying? And they'll find out that some of these doctors are signing off on documents, or they signing into other people's documents that's not of those people's team. So meaning anytime you get to medical care, you have a team. So you'll have a team if you're doing blood work. You have a team if you're getting like your ears looked at, your eyes looked at, you're getting your heart looked at. There's a team assigned to you. So meaning there will be up to 1 to 2 doctors, because the doctor will have to need another person to consult with. You'll have the charge RN, who's mainly working with you. So most of the time they schedule your appointments according to people who've already generally worked with you. If you have to deal with more than two doctors or two different nurses on your case, then you should already know that they're moving around your documentations. Like I can tell you that from experience. I can tell you that from witness that on like at nursing places. And then I had the blessing to work at one of the hospitals in Colorado, and Colorado is like the best for like certain medical things, but they're not the best when it comes to certain other shit. We ain't gonna touch on that, but you can basically figure out more or less when and how that goes. Also, it's just like more or less to figure out when it comes to psychological things. Most psych wards have lately over the last 5 years, 5 to 6 years, up to like the last 13 years, they have been really judges, lawyers, and psychologists and stuff like that have really been abusing the system. And with that, they've been able to overcome with a lot of people, and mainly it's targeted towards people of color, so Indians, Black, Native Americans, Hispanics, and stuff like that. When it comes to like DCF, people that are on food stamp welfare, low income, oh, they are big targets. And these were people be like, oh, I got this kind of thing. And it's like, y'all don't know when to shut the fuck up, and y'all don't know when you're getting targeted. So most of the time when they feel like you're very docile or damselly in distress, they feel like you're too stressed out to notice things, that's when they usually try to utilize those times to pull the okey doke. And with them pulling those okey dokes, especially in DCF, CPS cases and things of such, that's most of the time when they target it, because they feel like you're more vulnerable, and like they know what parents do care for the kids, and they know what parents really don't give a damn, because they're going to base it off the lifestyle that you're living. So say for instance, they know for sure if you're like a parent that for real, like for them, they probably thought I was some kind of scammer, some thief, some stripper, or some weird shit, right? So with them feeling as if I genuinely did that, they target you. And once they put your name in the system, like after your name been submitted into like DCF or CPS system more than 3 times, your name is automatically flagged in a system, whether you see it or not. And they will already have you categorized as like high potential or a high flag alert to go ahead. Like if they wanted you, like they need to go to anger management, or you need to go to this parenting class, or you'll always find yourself running into issues with the law, or you'll find yourself where they'll be like, well, you should consider to go see a doctor or a psychiatrist and talk your problems out. And the only reason why they're moving or requesting you to work in a network, which is fraud, part of the fraud and malpractice of their associates, all it requires you to do on a legal aspect is to look at who's funding them. Every hospital, whether it's privately or publicly owned, all of them have finances that are put out publicly as a public record to know where those funds are coming from. So when they're getting these donations, when they're getting funded, when they have a particular events, you can see whether if they're getting paid from police, judge system, campaigns, organizations, food places and things like that. And you could actually utilize that to your benefit whenever, if you're going to be representing yourself in a court of law pro se, or if you hire a lawyer and your lawyer and you feel like your lawyer is not doing enough. Most of the time, I forgot to look up that law whenever you feel like your lawyer is actually going against you or actually working with them. Like if you ever suspect that a lawyer and a judge or the prosecutor are all, friends or something like that, that is a conflict of interest, even in a DCF case. So at the guardian ad litem and all that, and say it's time for your court case, and you just see them, ha ha ha, yeah, Bob, yeah, Jim, yeah, we should go ahead and beat each other for lunch. Mind you, this is a serious court case. At any given time that you hear them say any of that, you can actually get the judge moved. You can get the prosecutor and your own attorney moved from off your case. Say that you notice that the CPS worker, DHS, or whoever is working amongst these lawyers and stuff like that, you can get them looked into, and you can get any cases that they worked on. So say, for instance, most of the time their caseload, they will have, if they're new, three, about 5 cases. If you can get up to like 5 cases at minimum within the last 2 to 3 years, or every, within those 2 to 3 years, say annually it's like 5 to 10 cases, or even it's up to 23 cases, you can cause the lawsuit, and them coming to get your kids or anything like that, that's now considered a personal injury. And a lot of people don't know that, because I just remember after all that case had happened to me in 2012, 2013, 14, I had nothing but time but to look into the laws and regulations. And I was sitting there like, okay, well, what caused them to go ahead and have this loophole? And then when the judge sent the letter, and I had, my attorney at that time was Jim Potter, okay? And when he came back to me after the court case, he pulled the situation where he was saying, well, the judge gave us this paperwork, and he said, and he read it, and I read it right along with him. Basically, they told me if I ever went back to that court and decided to go sue even the CPS, the lawyers, the attorneys, and even the judge, that he was going to go ahead and charge me automatically without question, without hearing my case, and give me 15 years and put on my record that I did neglect, that I did abuse, and all this other stuff. So I was like, if that's the case, if you put that on my record, that would mean that I would not be allowed to be around my own children. And they knew it was wrong, because the thing of it was, where they knew the case was botched from the beginning, all my evidence to prove that I wasn't there, like literally I was all the way in Nashville, he was all the way at my house in Tiny Town. So to go to the club where we were at, that was all the way, we was like an hour and like 10 minutes away. So how was it that I was there during the time that my child got hurt? Then it was like, how is it that you're going to keep trying to charge me with something that I didn't do? And they was like adamant to try to make it seem like I did it. Oh, you need to take this lie detector test. Take this lie detector test. And I'm sitting here confused, like, what the fuck is going on? And then it was like, well, it seems like you had a hiccup on this question when you asked, right? And the caseworker at that time for the CPS, her name was Carmen. I still remember the motherfuckers like it was yesterday. And it was like, well, it seemed like you was nervous. Well, it seemed like I caught your ass fucking on Marcus Antoine Phillips at the club the night before it was time for me to do that. Because he had this habit of, whenever he was doing that K2 shit and drinking Four Locos and all this other stuff, and then it was just like, I didn't already trust him. So I would keep him around just to figure out, like, okay, what else is your ass into? But at that same time, he was not aware that I ended up being aware that his ass was trying to be initiated into becoming a fucking Mason over there at Fort Campbell. But he was already about to get kicked out, because he was like, if you ever had to see a fucking dumb criminal and a stupid fucking criminal, who the fuck goes on a military base to take a piece of an aircraft that was part of classified situations and then try to fucking pawn it? That was the stupidest shit I've ever fucking experienced in my life. And I was like, bro, you must be the dumbest fucking criminal. So with the situation, mind you, like I said, the case was already pending with the state of Tennessee. Fort Campbell decided to go ahead and get me involved in his bullshit. I'm like, what does his bullshit have to do with it? And I remember the JAG lady try to pull the fast one. So are you taking up for this person after he already tried to kill your kid? First of all, lady, you know I'm not even supposed to sit here. I was like 6-7 months in my pregnancy and shit. And it's like, you ain't supposed to be questioning me like that. And I remember the judge had to step in, the military judge. He was like, hey. And I remember breaking down. I'm like, bro, like, why the fuck would you break? I'm like, I'm trying to stay focused on what you're talking about. You bring into my son's case. I'm trying to put on, military strong and handle this. And I remember the judge had to pull me to the side. He was like, I'm gonna need you to calm down. Are you okay? Like, he was trying to make sure I was okay. I was like, it's fine. And I was like, and I remember he just pulled me to the side. He asked me a question. I said, I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. I don't know what he got into, whatever this case may be. I'm like, was super, emotional and charged and stuff like that. He was like, this is on me. He took account. He was like, this is on me, because I knew better than to allow this. But then she ended up asking me, I was like, look, if you got to arrest his ass, you got to arrest his ass. Because every time that I would ask him personally what happened to my son that day, everything but telling me the truth. And then his mama, dumbass, gonna end up calling me. Well, Marcus already told me everything. So if he told your ass everything, tell these judges, because all these people thinking I did it. So at that point, I already had knew what's up. So I was like, shit, well, bitch, even if you are not the real fucking father, ho, you going to fucking prison because my son was in your care. And then when my kids was saying like, Mom, he was being mean to us when we wake up, because I knew my son Adrian, he used to wake up in the middle of the night and he'll go looking for me in my room, but I had went out, and something kept telling me in my soul like, take the kids to go over there, because I was with Jasmine Sample at that time and Andre, and something was telling me she would drop the kids over there with Andre, because I trusted Andre with the kids. But at the same time, I'm like, well, shit, if we got this kid together, he got to be a chance to be a father. And it was just like, that shit went left. That's why it's like, when it comes to babies and kids, you got to be mindful, baby. You got to be mindful, because he was already showing me the world dumbest fucking criminal. He was already just showing like every fucking sign, like this is not a person to be trusted with kids or nothing like that. And he was just so gung-ho on this girl named Nikki and her daughter and shit like that. And then it got to a point he started stealing my money that I was using for my court case to give it to the girl. And I didn't find out until like after the fact. And once I figured that shit out, I was just like, it took at like, I was keeping him close. And when I say like that court case was going, it took everything in me. Because when I say I seen every fucking crime that you could commit to a man, you got to think, I literally, the baby was 5 weeks. Marcus was only 5 weeks old. He was only 5 weeks old. And imagine a doctor coming to you, your child suffered a bilateral fracture to the skull. Within minutes after that, I seen a whole team rush in. Do you think you're listening to anybody talking to you? Because the only thing you know, a doctor popped his head in, didn't come in fully. Within 2 minutes of after him popping his head in, your kid got a bilateral fracture to the skull. Then right after the fact, he runs right out, a team rushes in. They knew that I was going to be in an emotional shock. So this is how I knew it was like something else was to it. So while they're talking to me, all I can hear, like, it sounded like they was talking to me at a distance. So they knew I was in trauma shock. So when they pulled the court case with CPS and DCF and all that, they knew I was in trauma shock. Also, I was in postpartum. So that judge knew he was not supposed to run that case at that time. He was not supposed to. And I'm sitting here like, everything in me like, oh, I'm like, okay, they just did this. They just did this. Then imagine that the lady that ended up, quote unquote, saying that she was there for the case, and she was not there. I remember the faces. I just didn't remember everything that they were asking me, because I was in so much shock trying to watch what they were doing. Because imagine it's a newborn baby, you nursing, and then they come in that say your kid got a shot, a fracture to the skull. You gonna lose your shit. But then this doctor, as the case is going on, and this is how I knew I had a lawsuit, when he tried to threaten, and then they pulled intimidation, which they still trying to carry this shit on since then. They pulled that the lady who was one of the carers, I want to say after he was in the hospital after 3 months. So they kept trying to reiterate the trauma, which when those type of situations happen, they are not supposed to keep you repeating what happened. And it made it seem like they kept trying to make me repeat every time, which will provoke, whether you know it or not, will provoke the trauma to relive. So say if the doctors is trying to do something, they can pull whatever kind of fast one, because they're going to expect for you to keep in that trauma state to think about what happened that day versus, oh, I can give this kid this medication. Oh, I can give them this to test this on this kid. And that's what they were doing at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital in Nashville. So when all of this was happening, they also wanted me to disregard the fact of when I went to Fort Campbell, they had me waiting in the waiting room, which they was not. He was only 5 weeks. So automatically when you go into the emergency room and you bring a newborn baby and saying, hey, this child has fell, hit their head, or, anytime you talk of a head injury, within, it doesn't matter how many people in there, outside of, if it's not a gunshot wound or something that's not sticking out of your body, or you not having difficulty breathing, any emergency room, I don't give a fuck if it's a military installation, automatically you bring a newborn in with a head trauma or a possible head trauma, they are supposed to automatically take you to the back. They made me wait in that waiting area for 3 hours. I remember that shit like yesterday, September 27, 2012. I won't ever fucking forget it. I won't ever fucking forget it. My life changed forever that day. So I always had to look at systems, lawyers, DCF, the state, even people around me in a whole different light. Like it made me sit down and concentrate. Anytime a doctor gave me paperwork, read it. Anytime they were prescribing medications to myself or my kids, it made me read into it, look into it, who's the prescriber, what company, why they did it, what clinical researches was done, what people, what crowd of people they were looking to use this on, like, was this blind studies, is these placebos, is it a particular, nationality or group that they're trying to do this, is there blood type that they're trying to look into? Like, it made me look at every system different. And then they pulled that the doctor who was there like 3 months after his incident happened, they did a VHS, meaning there was no need, they couldn't cross-examine this person. They could not cross-examine her or ask her questions on the spot like, hey, so were you there at this time and this time? So they already premeditated the shit, and they use a fucking recorder. Oh, well, she was pregnant and stuff like that. Oh, y'all took her into fucking consideration in her pregnancy. And I want to say she was only like 3-4 months pregnant. I was like big day fucking pregnant, having me sit in courtrooms and everything, having to leave from work, come in there. I'm talking about belly big as motherfucking day. And they was still running this court case. But then when they pulled that shit of recording that lady and no one was able to cross-examine her, that day I knew they was trying to run a fast one. And then after that, they closed the case without looking to none of the evidence. I was like, look, I have the evidence of when he was calling, when he was texting, and all this other stuff. They didn't want to look at him at first. They did not want to look at him at first at all. They were so adamant that I did that. I was like, this is the proof. It's showing you that I wasn't there. This is showing you that I took them into the hospital, which he should have fucking got up and went to the hospital. He didn't choose to do that. Secondly, I did the smart thing, even though I didn't get a chance to call anybody and be like, hey, can you take me on the base? Which I still had to be responsible, get my other 2 kids up, get them dressed, drop them off to somebody responsible, which I did, which Frances, Richardson had my kids, but she was military. She knew daycare, everything was already set up. They went to go still snatch my kids versus waiting for me to go ahead and call relatives to come up and pay for them to come get my kids. So they was already looking for a paycheck. Not to mention, they had literally just that week alone, the state of Tennessee, Clarksville, Tennessee, had 68 cases of kids being killed on their clock that week alone. So why would I want you to take my kids when I'm already finding responsible for them to go to daycare and go other things? Not to mention, as soon as they try to put them into another place, they got abused automatically. I'm calling them like, hey, can you at least move them to somewhere else? All this other stuff. And then ever since then, I ain't looked at a court system the same. I was like, the day that I get a chance to go ahead and get my motherfucking education degree, I'm coming for what's mine. There's no statute of limitation, especially when it comes to child abuse, intimidation, and then going ahead and threatening a person. And then you carried on when I end up finding out after the fact, they called me, right? This is how I knew James Henry Taylor V and his whole Parham family had ties to the court system on top of Social Security and everything else when they was playing with it at that time. That's when I knew right there and then. I said it was a setup from the fucking beginning, because something said, Rita, just pay attention to the environment. The grandpa, before he got Alzheimer, and I really feel like they unallowed that man to hurry up and get the money that he had put away. But when they did all that shit, I figured out, because how did she call me before? The prosecutor called me and saying, hey, we offered Marcus a plea deal. The first plea deal was offered for him to get 3 to 8. Then the second one that they gave him was 8 years. But then they end up, I guess, I don't know what plea that caused him to take the 15-year thing. But the thing of it was, what was funny about the situation, Regina Taylor called me right like an hour before the prosecutor called me. How the fuck you know what the hell they giving him and they haven't even called me yet? How the hell you knew what hit the paper and the paper wasn't even out yet? The paper didn't come out until 3 days after the fact, but you called right an hour before the prosecutor was able to call me. So, which allowed me to know like it was money involved. Regina, her ass, like that's how I knew. I was like, y'all all from the same shit, because when Sheila had peeped during that time and it was like, oh, why don't y'all get married because you had a kid? I wasn't supposed to have that kid with his ass. So he knew what he was doing when he did it. And then every time that I was getting ready to leave and he knew I was going to leave, he would get me pregnant. And then after I get pregnant, what you get pregnant for, like, motherfucker, I can go to the clinic and go ahead and get these papers. And every time that I went to go do that, no, you ain't got to do that. You ain't got to do that. So then I had started noticing, like, say for instance, that I would pull away, and I remember just chilling. To them, they was thinking like, oh, she going along with it. She going along with it. All I was doing that whole all them years, because I was just trying to strategize, how to divorce them. What ended up fucking happening, what I had to pay attention to James when I knew I was like, something ain't right in his motherfucking head. That first time when I got ready to leave, he ended up breaking into my car and try to break this, like go into the circuit and mess with it. And then he started taking the hood caps off it. He thought I didn't see him. At that time, his friend Eric and Victor. Victor was alive, so before Victor got unalive, it was him, because that was his little DL trade. To this day, he still don't think I know about his ass being gay a long time ago, like back in 2015. Like, no, 2014, because that's when I had Nina. And the guy from the BP station, I stayed in Ashland Park off of Riverside in Clarksville. And how I figured out the boy was gay, he was like, your last name Tyler? You just like, is that like Taylor in the Parhams? I was like, who you talking about? He was like, you know Jarvis and James? I said, I'm married to James. And the boy, he was, baby, full flamboyant. James? Are you sure you're married to James? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. I was like, at that time, I just had Nina. I didn't have baby James yet. I was like, yeah, we got 2 kids together. Oh, really? Well, tell him I've been trying to call him. Oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? I sound like I was on Friday. I was like, oh, okay. He was like, yeah, because I saw him with one of the attorneys and stuff like that. And I know he usually be doing his, and then he stopped himself. And I was like, The other fucking part of it was when I started paying attention to him. He was like, yeah, let's go see my friend. I know a friend that work over here at AT&T. You know what I'm saying? I had a friend that work over here at Sprint. I'm like, you got a friend? He's like, yeah, sometimes like he used to, when he got drunk, oh, he would tell his motherfucking soul. So from right there and then, I knew I was like, well, Sheree, if you got to figure out somebody doing some fuck shit, give them whatever it is of their vice. You'll figure out what you need to know. And right there, when I say I had to look at every system, people, organizations, and he was like, yeah, my uncle Shotgun, which was Louis Parham, and then he started talking about his Uncle Ricky. I was like, so what do Uncle Ricky do? Because he don't always leave the house. He was like, and he still had a Bell South account. When I figured out that he had the Bell South account, I said, oh, so they motherfuckers be doing scamming shit. That's when I put the pieces together. And then my mom, I guess she had got this bright idea, because I guess some information she had got in the mail. I don't know what she got to this day. I don't know what piece of mail she got to this day, but whatever it was that she received, she saw a benefit with his mama. And she was like, oh, so Regina, she took her out for drinks or whatever. I think I was taking the kids bowling or something like that. At this time, Sheila was only super helpful to me whenever it was money involved. Like I knew my people, whenever they get real super interested in my life, money was tied to it. And then she was like, yeah, girl, what you be getting into? She's like, girl, I got to go get this money. She's like, this money? She said, I know that's right. She's like, yeah, I got to go over here and go get my MoneyGram. Or at that, it was either MoneyGram. What's that other one called? Walmart to Walmart type shit. She's like, oh, you do that? And then I remember we was on our way to drive down to Florida. He was going to stay there. And something had already told me he had got beat up. James Henry Taylor got beat up because he saw one of his trades and he thought he was going to go do something. That dude beat his ass at the club that night. Oh, y'all got to go find little man. He got beat up. The motherfucker came in that motherfucker house with a big ass knocking on. I'm like, what happened? He at the club with all his gay cousins. I say, this nigga went to a gay club, tried to pull up on a motherfucker, and his ass got beat. His whole family knew the nigga was gay. But I was like, sure, to play along, play along. But like I said, every time it was time for me to leave, he will do very vindictive, hateful shit towards me and the kids. And then he'll try to pull the reactive abuse. See, your problem is you cognitive dissonance and shit. I'm like, did he really just try to pull psychology? And then his mama had this bad habit where she will mention all the high top lawyers and commissioners out there in Clarksville. Right there, I was like, sure to keep that shit in the bag. Cause now you know how the operation is ran. And she be like, yeah, see, I used to mess with his brother. You know, all I gotta do is throw some coochie at him and he'll give me some information and help that I need. I was like, oh, it's like that. Yeah, my homegirl Condra, you know, I'll have her do this, you know, with the bank. All I had to do was get her ass some food, get her some money to go get her some scratch offs and some cigarettes, make her ass feel real nice and comfortable, made the bitch feel like she was safe. She was giving me the whole fucking rundown of how they be getting these damn police officers, lawyers, judges, and everything. Yeah, this was my friend from then, you know what I'm saying? And any fucking black woman you see that she has a whole bunch or particular type of white female friends, just know she running some kind of scam, or if it's some big money, she know how to utilize them. So you just got to go ahead and do your research like, okay, what's their names again? Yeah, and she had this bad habit of being like, yeah, I wish James would have talked to this girl Tiffany, because Tiffany, her folks had money. I wish he had talked to that Asian white girl, you know, the Scots and stuff like that, because, you know, he could have got this. It's like, oh, really? At that point, I just started not give a fuck, because it was like, shoot, you got to figure out how to detach, because you already know he into some shit that he ain't had no business. And then when we went to Colorado, that's when I had figured out that he was sleeping with everybody on Canyon Oak. He was sleeping with people from MGA Home Health Care, and then he was trying to figure out his way to finagle the people with the home health care and the respite program. And then that's how I put the pieces together that he was sleeping with Trevante. And I was like, God damn. I'm like, damn, nigga, is there anywhere where you wouldn't put your thing in? And then it was just like, he started looking real like, you know, little light-skinned motherfuckers. I could tell that he was on that shit because their eyelids right here started getting pink. And then it was just one day where my intuition was going off and said, check that fucking phone. Why did I see him posting on the gay sites about how he would do his escapades, when he would do it, what high ranking he was telling about military people he was sleeping with, like coming to my military job. And then I noticed that when I would go to work, who I would have issues with. So I was just like, that's elaborate. Like I wasn't gonna knock the hustle, but it was like, shit, y'all doing it like that. That's why up to current that everybody's moving how they doing. You gonna know who's paid. You gonna know who they gonna talk to. That's why I elaborately explained to y'all what you need to do at any given moment that you get any inkling clue. Because if a police can search you with suspicion of something, you're suspicious of misconduct, you can research that fucking police officer. All you need to know is that day they came, the time, their car number, their badge number. And if they refuse to give you that badge number, any officer that refused to give you a badge number, do you not know that they are in violation of their code of conduct? Most of the time when you're talking to an officer, it's like, hey, officer, you know, yes, I have no problem. You can actually offer your legal right before they start questioning. May I have your badge number? They will try to pull this belligerent power move. Like, you don't need all this information. What you need, that I need your driver's and registration. Officer, only thing, as long as you're keeping a calm monotone, and now officers start trying to pull rank and all this other stuff, or try to pull a power move, and they still refuse to not give you their badge number. At any given time, you can go ahead and report them to DAIA, their precinct, the government, or whoever it is that is over their people, because not every states, you know, have particular people that run them. You just figure out who run them, what station, even highway patrol. At any given time that you speak to them, and they choose not, or you now with them wearing cameras and you feel like that camera is not on, sir, before I give you this information, could you make sure that your camera is on? If they don't give you the camera, don't give them that, because it's just like, am I being detained? If they never answer and they try to delay it, am I being detained? If the answer is no at that situation, and they try to pull, well, I didn't say that you can go, that is a power move. That is part of misconduct, that they cannot use the halo law. At that point, that officer cannot use the halo law. You are not resisting arrest. You are not being belligerent. They were talking back. No, sir, you were looking to pull a power play. All I've asked is, though I have my license, I have my insurance, everything that you need. May I have your badge number before I pass this to you, please? Could you make sure that your camera is on? Also, you need to pay attention to the radio at any given moment where he's saying 10-4, 10-7. Look up all the legal codes, which is now going to probably be something for someone. If you want to stay safe in a situation, pay attention to when they're approaching your car, because their radios should be up loud. And the reason being why their radios are up loud for a reason is that for public citizens purposes, you are meant to actually hear those radio codes. Because at a point in time when they couldn't hear that, and even though it's not you tracking them, if they're approaching you to investigate you, you are meant to ask, what code did you give? At any given moment, you hear 10-7. Trust and believe me, they're doing something illegal to you. They pulled you over, but you heard 10-7. That means they're fit to pull misconduct. That is abuse of power. And on top of that, you have a lawsuit way on top of that. So even if you are a criminal, you could be a felon. Hey, you crack the window because it's still technically open. Is your camera on? May I have your badge number first? I do have, you make it known. Is it okay that I record before I wrote this down? Especially if you're a person of color and you're a felon or something like that, or you got misdemeanors, crack the window. Crack the window. It's still open because they can't say that it's not open. It's open. It's just not open to how they want. That's the difference. Also, you're not obligated to talk to them. Am I being detained? If they delay for about 10 seconds or more, you can press record as soon as they pull up, or be smart enough to go ahead and put those new cameras in your car and push it. So you can avoid that whole ticket situation. You can avoid them trying to pull rank, abuse the system, because a lot of people, especially me, I am beyond tired of people abusing their authority, their positions, or anything. At any given time that you go to church, right? And you at a church and you know that they got deacon boards and all this other stuff, right? And you're getting refused. Pay attention to who's on the board. Pay attention to their occupation and what's going on. You not know that you can sue a pastor or a minister or the choir or anything at any given moment where you feel like you're being discriminated against or not given an opportunity to do so. You just take that to clergy court. The pastor being mean and rude and you feel like it's misrepresentation or misuses of the money, you can sue them. Most of the time they wouldn't want that, because guess what? Well, nobody wouldn't come to my church. Shit, I wouldn't want to come to your church either if you over here trying to abuse your position. I am just the messenger. I am just the messenger. And some people that's probably super highly upset about the fact that all the information that I gave you is it's admissible. Where they want to look at for certain things to be inadmissible in the court of law, everything that I just gave you right now is very admissible. Where most of the time, if they feel like it's a certain court case, pay attention to certain, you know how they love to go on TikTok and be like, ooh, this is our fine officers. Did you not know most of the time certain police officers are not supposed to be on TikTok like that? At any given moment that you get a police officer, a sheriff, or somebody that's on social media, not on their own accord, which not to say that they're not allowed to have the social media, but say like it's a very beautiful woman and she becomes a police officer, right? But most of the time you have to figure out, are they using this as bait? Are they using this, you can tell when they're trying to mislead or when they're trying to bait something in, or they trying to use certain things. So you have to be very careful with that. But however, at any given time, if you ever catch a police officer and they take a picture of themselves in uniform and post it on a dating app or a social media app and not utilizing it for the benefit of work, you can get their ass caught up. And especially if they're doing inappropriate misconduct towards people, a civilian of your city, state, or county, you can sue their ass. You can sue them. And most of the time they ain't gonna tell you, of course, not all attorneys or judge gonna tell you that. Why? Because that puts a threat to their job. That put a threat to their position. I'm just the messenger. Don't get mad at me. I am just the messenger. Shit, you not know that an off-duty cop sitting there doing certain things, like it's certain jobs that they can do. That's why they're able to get like apartments, condos, and things of that such discounted, because the only thing that they're meant to offer is like, say if there's disturbances or certain things like that. But most of the time they're not meant to answer it unless they're getting ready to go on duty. So they can do it either 2 to 5 hours prior to their shift or after their shift. Anything after that, they're not supposed to really approach people unless it's like direct danger and it's going to take, the other police squad to get there. It's, take them more than 5 minutes. So any police that's out more than 5 minutes, the off-duty officer is allowed to respond. Just in case y'all didn't know that. So, all right, I'm going to come back with y'all to the next message. I need to finish my good old smoothie. So I'll be right back with y'all. Come on.